Good evening, and welcome to Exeter Library's latest in conversation. And this evening, we're chatting to author Jessica Thorne. These events are free, but if you'd like to give a donation to the Libraries Unlimited, which is a charity that runs the 54 libraries in Devon and Torbay, there is a link in the chat. And we're also posting to over 30 libraries across Devon and Torbay this evening. So hello to everybody else who's watching us. And if you'd like to ask a question, if you pop it in the chat, I will ask Jessica. So as Jessica Thorne, because we'll come on to that in a second, she writes fantasy and space opera romance, which I'd not heard of as a genre, so that's a new one on me. The Queen's Wing and The Stone's Heart, which was shortlisted for the RNA Fantasy Romantic Novel of the Year Award in 2020, and The Hollow King duology Mageborn and Nightborn. As R.F. Long, she writes fantasy and paranormal romance, such as The Scroll Thief, Soulfire, and Holtland stories, The Wolf Sisters, The Wolf's Mate, and Songs of the Wolf, which were originally published with Samain Publishing, and she recently re-released, along with a full-length final part of the series, The Wolf's Destiny. Jessica Ruth lives in Ireland and works in a library of rare and unusual and occasionally crazy books, but they don't talk to her that often. And if you've read The Bookbinder's Daughter, which we'll come on to shortly, you'll know a little bit more about that. So as Jessica watched too much sci-fi and read far too much fantasy at an impressionable age, and she loved fantasy, romance and science fiction ever since, and spends her time looking for adventures in the pages of her books. The Bookbinder's Daughter, which I have a lovely copy of here, is described and is absolutely a spellbinding read about a long hidden family secrets and the magic that lurks between the pages of every ancient book. So hi, Jessica.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Jessica Ruth. So
Jessica Ruth.
Jessica Ruth. We'll give you
I
another
answer
name.
to all sorts of names.
So thank you for joining us this evening. And would you like to tell us a bit about The Bookbinder's Daughter?
Yes, well, The Bookbinder's Daughter is kind of my total love letter to libraries. I've joined the public library when I was very, very little, and we had a very small local branch, and I read everything in there. And then I had to go to the bigger branch down the road, and I read everything there. And I think in a fit of despair, the librarians gave me an adult ticket because I was still reading everything. So I loved it. I absolutely adored it. And then I ended up working in libraries, which is, I worked in public libraries for a little while. And then now I work in private library and have done so for a number of years now. And yeah, I started, there's always something very magical about libraries. There's always, in my head particularly, there's always this idea of things that sort of happen between the pages of the books and sort of magic hiding away. So for a long time, I had this idea of this magical library where anything could happen, where the library itself seemed alive. And I was very lucky with my current job when we could travel. I did a lot of trips for work, and I got to see some of the most amazing libraries in the world, some incredible visits, and I've been really, really lucky. And that all sort of fed into this story. So, yep, last year in lockdown, in deepest, darkest lockdown, I started writing it all again. And it's kind of one of those books I always wanted to write. For as long as I can remember, I've kind of had this idea of the library book. And friends online and in writing groups and things will have heard me talk about the library book. So I've finally written it. I'm delighted, and it's out in the world.
It's really hard, isn't it? Quite often authors will talk about this book that they often have in their head, and it quite often either takes them years and years to come out, or in some cases it never comes out, does it?
Yep.
Because it's sort of that idea that they really want to get out, but because it's so, I don't know, a part of you, it's very difficult to do that. So maybe lockdown was a gift to you in that way.
Could well have been, yeah. I mean, I know I tried to write it time and again, and I never quite got it right. And I tried to write it in different sort of, as Ruth Francis Long, I write young adults. I think I tried to write it as a young adult book, and it wouldn't work. It just did not want to come together. Yes. So suddenly everything clicked into place, and I had something that worked. I was delighted.
It did indeed. I mean, as I said to you at the beginning, I really wanted to finish it, and I've got one chapter left, which is not a good place to finish it on, I can tell you. So I will be finishing it at the end of this conversation, because I really need to know what happens, because it's as it said, it's set in the beautiful and strange, I'll say, Airedale Library. The finest collection of rare books in the world. Is that you're sort of big fan of being working in a library, the sort of the love of libraries and the traveling of libraries? It's very easy when you read the book to visualize the library. Was that what inspired you, and how you managed to get that over in your writing?
Very much so. I think as well, sort of as a there's this sort of joke that does the rounds every so often about Beauty and the Beast, which is sort of, forget the handsome prince, just give me the library.
Yeah.
And I've always felt very much like that. It's sort of, it's really special to me. And I can remember my husband, when we first met, came into our house and said, "Oh, thank God there's books," because they too are really love their books. So to walk into a house and see books on the shelf, it's sort of a homecoming feeling, and it's
definitely
somewhere you can be comfortable. So yeah, with writing the library book, it was this idea of it deals with themes of home and of belonging, and a found family as opposed to your actual family. And I think that's sort of very important in it. And the idea that, that there is this place where we all belong, and where magical things can happen. And that's the idea behind Airedale. Certainly the inspiration came very much from working in libraries, and I had to be really careful as a librarian not to just stick in loads of in jokes, like library in jokes that no one would ever get, except sort of 4 librarians somewhere. You had to be really careful.
Like little Easter eggs, like they do in films, so that only the librarians can guess these things.
Exactly. Well, there may still be some things in there, but I sort of writing things, and I go, I can't. It's just silly.
It felt very familiar to me, I think, as working in a library, and we have a wonderful stack in Exeter Library, our archive downstairs, and we've also got special collections and a little place that we call the cage, which has all our sort of precious items in. And in my head I was thinking of when the cage is of being that the sort of special bit where the collections are, and there are some real sort of gems, aren't there, in collections that ours is a real sort of it's not a made collection, it was just things that were donated, and I imagine a lot of libraries come together that way.
I think most libraries are. It's very few. I know Marsh's library here in Dublin is it's a magical place. I mean, it's wonderful, but it's 3 collections from the 1700s, and it's just been preserved ever since. And that's incredible to walk into, because you really get the sense of that, what a library would have been like sort of in that long ago. And that's a magical thing. But at the same time, I think most libraries they just attract stuff, don't they? People go, "I thought you might like this for your library," and
absolutely,
you're like, "Okay." And I thought that would be, the idea of having a magic library where all the magic stuff goes, if you like, where when people donate things. I mean, I work the library I work has a strong theme of religion, and we get the most random things, like, here is a rock, it comes from Mount Sinai. Well, thank you very much. It's okay. And, so you end up with some very strange bits and pieces, I think, in any library. But if the library has a particular theme to it, or a particular mission statement, I think the things get even odder, because someone goes, "Oh, that's vaguely connected with."
Ours is. I mean, a lot of ours isn't even catalogued, and it's something that they want to do, is because it has been just like generally, things that have been donated over the years and then passed along. But I think I really liked the characters in the book, and how they're sort of all entwined with each other, and that sort of idea of the keeper. which is Edward, isn't it? Edward's the keeper, and
he becomes the keeper at one point.
The keeper, yes. But I like that idea of a keeper of the library, and someone to sort of, I think that's what library staff do, doesn't it? They're like the keeper of the books, and sort of the protectors of the books. I liked the characters in there. They're a great group of characters, and as you said, that there's that sort of theme of family, and it's really important in the story, and it's not that I'm not going to give too many secrets away, but there's a lot of secrets in this family, isn't there? And as you said, they're not sort of a family as you would say a normal family, because they've all been sort of brought together by different things. But I really liked Will.
Good.
I wasn't so much of a fan of Arthur. He wasn't, and Victor. Don't even get me started. Did you have a favourite when you were writing?
I think it's funny you should mention Victor, because there's scenes with him that I was writing and it made my skin crawl.
Oh, he really
hated him.
It was dreadful.
Oh, and I've had other people going, oh, he's such a good character, and I was like, I really don't like him. But no, I think my favorite is Tia, who's the archivist, and she's just she's a what they call a real character. She's one of these people that at any moment she could do anything and it wouldn't be unusual for her. No. It would just, like, anything could happen around her. And I love this idea of just this sort of chaotic being, this chaotic person living there, and everyone else just sort of getting on with it and going, that's fine, that's just her, don't worry about it. And we just carry on, she's like that. And also then, she can push people away, and she can be very abrasive and things like that, and they still care for her. And I think that's really important, that the other characters who live in the library still care about her and still sort of look after her, that she needs as much looking after as anyone else there, which is I'm very, very fond of her. And then there's Dativolus the cat, would be the other character. I love the cat.
He's lovely. I liked him as well. I like Sophie is when she arrives at the library, she sort of gets introduced to Tia, doesn't she, as oh, that's just Tia, she does this and she's like this, and like you said, everybody just accepts her for what she's like.
She is,
and she's full of surprises. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. But you've got a lot of strong women in the book, haven't you? You've got the professor, Sophie, Tia, Elizabeth. They're all strong women. Was it important for you to portray that in the book?
Very much so. I think I'm always, most of my books are focused around women and women's relationships. And my previous book was The Lost Girls of Foxfield Hall, which again was similar in that lots of women. In fact, there was only really 2 major male characters in the whole book. But I love the idea of exploring relationships between women, not just love, but mother and daughter, or mother and child, I should say, and friendships between women. I think it's fascinating because it can be so complex and so and I mean, we all know this. Everyone's friendships are complicated. So I mean, I come from a family of very strong women anyway, and always have done. I was telling you earlier, my mum was originally from Plymouth, so that's a lovely little link, and she was an artist, and that's one of her paintings. I'm just showing it off again.
Beautiful.
And and my sisters, my grandmother was actually an ARP warden during the Blitz in Plymouth, which I always find stunning, because she was this tiny little lady who ran a corner shop, and that was it.
Plymouth got absolutely destroyed in the bombing. Wow,
definitely. So that was her job during the war. She just went out and did that. And so it's and I have 2 sisters who are amazing and terrifying. No, they're lovely. But the idea is, I just, there's a lot of strong women in my life, and I think it's really important that we see different kinds of strength in women.
Yeah.
So and that we see, on the page that there's lots of different kinds of women like this. We're all we're all different, and it's particularly, I mean, as I'm coming from, for a period of time I wrote for teenagers, and particularly determined that I would present interesting and complicated and diverse female characters for teens, because I think that's really important that they see that. But again, for adults as well, I mean, it's really important that it's there. So, for example, Sophie as a character, when you start reading the book, is quite downtrodden and very meek and mild, and she's in a terrible situation and she's very, very unhappy. And what I was able to examine was how, when she got away from that, how she grew as a person and grows into her own strength over the course of the book. And I know some people reading it have gone, oh God, I can't stand her, she's so wet. And that's only her at the very beginning.
Yeah.
She needs time to unfold a little bit.
She was a bit like an onion, wasn't she? You had to peel back the layers to find, but that's, when you read through the book, you find out the reason why she is the way she is. And it's not that she's weak, it's just because of the things that have happened to her, which I'm not going to say because you'll have to read the book.
I think it's important to see that. And when you see someone who presents themselves as completely together and strong, there's going to be much more beneath that as well. Like there's going to be, as you say, layers to every single person.
I think it really stood out to me that in the book, as I went through that, the women in it, I think they were, there was, they like I said, there was the characters in there were all really strong, but the women really sort of stood out to me for, the ones that were sort of almost, calling the shots and saying what was going on. and I think that is important, because over the years there've been lots of books where and there still are lots of books where men are the strongest characters. So it's really I think it is important and refreshing, particularly as you said with the young adult, but as for older adult readers, it's important to see women sort of overcome the barriers that because although the book is magical, what happens to her in the rest of her life is not magical related in any way, and actually could happen to anybody. So
absolutely.
I think that was I really liked her as a character, and I liked seeing her grow, as you said. So
that's good.
So you also, as we said at the beginning, Ruth / Jessica, you also write as R.F. Long, Ruth Frances Long, and Jessica Thorne. How complicated is it being three people?
Very complicated. Very, very complicated. It's funny. I mean, writing careers can do this. It's almost like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and carry on. So I use different pen names depending on the type of story I'm writing. And so the R.F. Long books were quite epic fantasy. Most of them. There's a paranormal romance, and there's other things in there. And then when I wrote a young adult book, my agent and publisher at the time wanted a different name, but linked to it, because it was fantasy as well. So I started using my full name, which is Ruth Frances Long. And then again, when I switched publisher again, they suggested, because I was writing for a different market, that we would look at a different name. And that's how Jessica Thorne came about. So in one sense, it's really just a massive marketing exercise. That said, it does make it easy to differentiate the type of book. And I think that's helpful for readers, because you get an idea. If you're picking up a Ruth Frances Long book, it's going to be young adult. It's going to deal with similar types of stories and similar themes, but on the whole, that's who it's aimed at. If you're looking at a Jessica Thorne book, they're interesting. They tend to be a little bit mad, always. So The Queen's Wing and the Stone's Heart are space opera, which are like Star Wars adventures set in space. But they feel very fantasy-like, the things that happen in them. And it's not sort of heavy or difficult science fiction. It's really an adventure story. Mageborn and Nightborn, again, they are They're fantasy. They're a bit gritty, but they are more like the epic fantasy books. And then The Lost Girls of Foxfield Hall and The Bookbinder's Daughter are a bit of a change in direction for me. They're set in our world. They're a bit more sort of Whippets fiction-y bits to them as well. But again, throughout all of them, there's a fantasy element. There's always going to be a fantasy element, and there's always going to be a romance element, because I love writing romances. I love to have a love story and a happily ever after. I think I'm a very romantic person that way.
Oh, that's nice. I really, I mean, this was the first book I'd read by you, but I'm definitely going to be checking out some others. When you sit down to write do you think you have a different voice as the different authors, or do you think
there's similarities, of course, like there would be, because we write in a certain way, but I think I don't know if it's the voice or if it's sort of the themes that I'll deal with, and the sort of the elements of storytelling that I'll deal with, maybe. But yeah, it's very hard to answer questions about your own writing voice. I don't know. Yeah,
I just was sort of fascinated with the fact that you like sit down and today I'm going to be R.F. Long, and and would you be able to write? Do you do one at a time, or could you do like part as?
Well, I do one at a time. I do still have sort of other things in the background, if I'm working on one book, there might be other projects that are bubbling away and things that I'm sort of thinking about working on, but I write one book at a time, and I write as one person.
Right, as one, because
I think you'd go mad.
Yeah. I was just saying, it was making my head hurt just thinking about it. I couldn't even think about writing it. As you said, you do write romantic, within your books. There is an element of romance. And is there any genre that you'd like to explore that you haven't already, that's not fantasy romance? Is there anywhere like you'd like to go, crime or horror?
I am quite a fan of the cozy crime. I do love a good murder mystery and a detective to solve the problems and that sort of thing. So that would probably be one area I'd veer into, and the other would be something like horror, just because there's always horror elements in fantasy and science fiction anyway, so they're very closely linked. So I wouldn't be adverse to heading deeper into that. But I think the funny thing is, like, throughout all of my books, the common thread is there is a love story, and I always try and make sure there's a happy ending for most of the characters.
Most of
the characters. Well, there's the lovely, the good end happily and the bad end unhappily. That's what it's all about.
You want it to all come around to a nice circle, so the bad get their comeuppance and the good people get the happy ever after.
Yes, exactly. Maybe a good murder mystery or something like that would be fun.
Do you think with the Bookbinder's Daughter is it a one-off? Or do you think would there be any chance that you would return to it? Because I could definitely see that I've obviously got one chapter left, so it could be like no way that's going to happen. But you have just given me a hint that it has a happy ever after, so it might be okay.
Well, it's a romance.
But
it was planned as a single book and as a standalone. But I'm always of the never say never school of mind when it comes to going back. And a lot of books, I find the characters, if there's going to be a sequel, the characters just won't leave the writers alone. They get sort of
keep coming back.
So you never know. I have promised readers a third book of the Queen's Wing books, though, so I have to write that first. Some point, because I get badgered about that a lot.
Is that so you said earlier about you sort of writing and sort of online, do you have sort of a big online sort of following, sort of presence? Do you write sort of on a sort of online?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on Facebook, and then there's the website and everything, but that's more static, just for information now.
Yeah.
These days everything has sort of moved in a different direction. I'm most and Instagram as well, but I'm most active on Twitter, and I have a lot of interaction there. It's great fun. when Twitter is working nicely, Twitter is gorgeous.
When it plays nicely, it's nice.
When it plays nicely,
yeah.
And I have lovely conversations, and people come up, sort of ask questions, and it's great. It's really, really nice. So I love doing that.
Really do you feel? Is there more of a pressure when you've sort of done a series like you said about was it the Queen's Wing?
Queen's Wing, yeah.
Queen's Wing.
Yeah.
That people want you to sort of recreate, then sometimes I imagine it's for you, it's just like, actually it might be at the point where you just think, like, I don't want to write any more about this. But that I've seen it with other books, things like Twilight and all those sorts of books, is like that sort of, we don't want it to end yet.
Oh yeah, like,
but actually it's ended.
Yeah. That is, I mean, and I'm guilty of that myself. If I'm reading a series of books and I love it, I'm just like, no, I want another one, and I want another. Don't care. No, it's funny. I mean, I did leave a bit of a thread hanging with the second Queen's Wing book, so I do want to finish that. It's like, because I like to complete things. But yeah, it's people do. If people fall in love with a book, and it's the most flattering thing to have happen, is someone going, please write another one of those, and you're sort of like, well, there's more to say. But so I get that with my they're the Dublin books, the Ruth Francis Long YA books. They're set in Dublin, but with a using lots of folklore and legends of Ireland. So there's an alternative magical Dublin called Dublin, and I do get people asking for more of that, and I don't know about going back there just yet. I'm not quite ready.
Not ready yet.
Maybe one day.
But like you say, I mean, nobody's going to ask you to write a book again if they didn't enjoy it. So I mean, actually, it is really lovely, isn't it?
It's a huge compliment. Yeah,
that you want to carry on. How do you you work? You said you work. So how do you fit in your writing?
Well, I'm lucky at the moment. I'm actually only working mornings, so I work part-time, and then I write and do everything else that one does with family and everything for the rest of the day. So that's good. When my kids were younger, and I actually worked full-time and wrote, and what that entailed was me sitting with a notebook in like a car outside the school waiting to pick them up, or staying up late at night, or getting up earlier in the morning, and you fit that time in wherever you can. So with more recently, because with more books published, it becomes a little bit easier to finance, maybe stepping back a little bit from. I couldn't give up my library job because I love it so much. So, I can't. I love it. So it was sort of like, well, I'll the opportunity came up to do it part-time. So I was like, yes, we'll do this. And that means,
that's lovely though, isn't it?
I'm really lucky. Yeah, really, really lucky. So I've got the balance of, I've got two jobs I love. So it's great. And I think when you're really enjoying something, you do tend to sort of pour more time into it. And make more of an effort at it, I suppose. So it's good. No, it's a nice balance now. It works very well.
How did you sort of get into writing, and did it take you a long time to become published?
Yes. So I can't really remember when I didn't write. So certainly I was making up stories and writing them down when I was quite little, and some of those survive, and they are terrible. Really, really terrible. I was not a precocious child. And then I remember, certainly as a teenager, I was writing novels and the whole thing. So like I really was the writer from very early on. Yeah. I didn't actually get published until I was in my 30s. So it was a long time. It was a long learning curve. But it's or actually was I in my 40s? I can't remember. I might have been in my 40s. But yeah, so it was so 30s. Okay, sorry, I've just got corrected. Nice flattering husband. But yeah, I got to that point where I was writing, and I was entering competitions, and I was submitting work, and I had reached a sort of what they call, it's the thing I call a plateau of writing. Yeah, where you're writing, what's happening is your writing is good enough, but you haven't got the right story to the right place at the right time. And so everything is like, we really love it, but, and you get all these rejections. They go, we really love it, but, and it's really frustrating. Like it's unbelievably frustrating. And I reached that, and I was very upset about a rejection at one point, and sort of sat down, had a conversation with my other half, who basically said, well, you know, do you want to? Like, do you want to keep going? And I was like, yes, I do. So that sort of gave me that push over. And I think sort of within a couple of months, I had my first short story published. And that was just like, yay. And it was like the new year, I think it was New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And I got the email saying, we'd like to publish this story. And they said, I hope you're having a happy new year. And I was like, well, I am now. So, you know, it is just this sort of moment where you get over that thing. So, I mean, I am by no means an overnight success. It took a very long time and a lot of hard work and a lot of work.
Yeah, there's very few people who are overnight successes, aren't there? I mean, there's many more authors like yourself that have had, you know, constant rejection, and I think you have to be really resilient and, you know, quite tough, don't you, to and not want to, you know, just walk away and go, okay, that's it, I'm done. And I wonder whether that's, you know, part of it really is that if you show that resilience, that you know that it's actually something you really, really want.
Yes, exactly. And it was just suddenly, I'm not that I was being encouraged to stop or anything, but just, you know, when faced with the would you rather not do it? No, I want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good thing. Like,
that's a horrible option.
If you want. Yeah, you can stop if you want to.
You can stop if you want to.
No, thank you.
But yeah, and I think, you know, I think we always hear about the you know, the very young writer who's instantly successful. And I think it's important to say as well that, there's other writers, there's other paths and other stories out there that you can, you know, follow and get there a little bit later, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I think it is, you know, I've spoken to lots of people and it's much more the norm to be like yourself, where it takes longer and, you know, lots of rejections, and, you know, it's very rare that someone, I mean, lovely for them,
fantastic
to be accepted that quickly, but like you said, it's generally the other way around, really. Can you tell us what you're writing at the moment and who as?
I'm writing another Jessica Thorne book at the moment, which is it is set in Brittany. And it is based around the legend of the lost city of Ys and Breton folklore and things like that. So it's about a young woman whose brother is hunting for Ys. He's sort of a treasure hunter type character, and she gets involved with this search for the lost city off the coast of Cap Sizun in southern Brittany. So that's where my brain is at the moment, which is very nice.
So have you had to go and do some research for that? Or
yes, I managed to get there. It was great. It was sort of our holiday. We got a holiday in September. We managed to get there. So we went to we got the ferry over to France, and we drove down to the very, very western tip of Brittany, and we had a fantastic few days sort of searching around all the different places and sort of walking along cliff tops, and it's all very sort of sweeping winds and amazing views and just gorgeous. So that was really inspirational and lovely, you know, really gave a sense of where I was wanting to go with the books.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Because I mean, it's been so hard, hasn't it, the last 2 years to, I guess it's like going, at least when you wrote the library book, you were going to somewhere that you knew well. And
yes, exactly. Whereas this was, just everything lined up. We were just really, really lucky in terms of travel and the ability to travel and things being open and all of that. So it worked out.
You've got that sort of that research now to take forward for the next one. And when's that one?
Exactly.
Is that out?
That will be out later next year. I don't know, I can't remember the exact date. I think it's during the summer next year. So that's I know I've got to deliver it by February. So
that's going to come around quickly.
It is, exactly. No pressure. It'll be fine.
I'm seeing that we're nearly at the end. So I know it flies by. And what do you like to read? What's your thing? And have you read anything recently that you'd like to recommend to this evening?
Absolutely. I I love to read all sorts of books. I mean, I love fantasy and I love romance, and there's all my sort of usual books. At the moment, I'm doing something a little bit different because I'm writing. So when I'm writing a book, I try not to read anything too close to what I'm writing, just because I don't want to sort of fuzz up my own brain. So I've been reading a series of books set in Brittany. They are murder mysteries. As I said, I do love a cozy mystery. And they're by Jean-Luc Banalek. So I've got one of them here, which is The Granite Coast Murders by Jean-Luc Banalek.
Nice cover. I like the stripes.
Lovely cover. So that's, I think it's the 6th one in the series. I have devoured this series over the last 6 months. Completely devoured it. Absolutely love it. He gets Brittany exactly right. He, knows it intimately, and they're clever and they're fun, and they're actually quite funny in places. It's the fish out of water. He's a Parisian police commissioner who has been, due to getting into trouble with his superiors for being cheeky, has basically been banished to Brittany
I do like a rogue police detective who's been sort of off, sent off somewhere.
Sent off to the sticks because he's been facing down superiors and getting into arguments. So, but there's a lot of stuff about him sort of trying to deal with the Breton way of life as opposed to the French way of life, and that's very entertaining. So I've just finished that one, and then I started this one, which is The Manningtree Witches.
Oh, I've got that one to read.
A.K. Blakemore. And it's beautiful. Oh my God, the language in it is amazing. It's really, really good.
I've got that one on my bookshelf to read. It looks amazing. Do you say, you said that you keep away from the sort of, fantasy and things when you're writing? Is that what you read? Do you read a lot of fantasy normally?
I do. I love fantasy romance. I really enjoy it. And I mean, people like, so many. The problem now is that I've actually made friends with an awful lot of the people whose books I adore. So I'm sort of going, am I recommending them because I love their books or because I love them? There's fantastic writers out there, and it's so like people like Kate Johnson, who's a really good friend of mine, but her books are just so clever and funny. And then Sarah Rees Brennan, who writes young adult books, and she's been writing a couple of tie-ins with things like Sabrina and the Fated books. But again, she's so clever and her books are so funny. So things like In Other Lands and Tell the Wind and Fire, they're amazing books. So I sort of highly recommend all of them. They're great.
Fantastic, yeah. Giving me another huge read.
This is the problem with asking a librarian to recommend books. You don't get one book.
No, you get about 10, and then your TBR list is just like falling over. My husband said to me the other day, you need to move some of those books off your bedside table.
Yeah. I have a tower.
I have 2 piles now because they got too high for one, so I've had to split them. It's been so lovely speaking to you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. So The Bookbinder's Daughter is out now with a lovely bookature. So it's available to buy, and also in the library you can order a copy in. So our next In Conversation will be next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and it's with a local author, Sam Carrington, and she's going to be talking about her latest book, The Couple on Maple Drive. So we're going back to psychological thrillers next week. So if you're interested in your psychological thriller, join Sam and I at 7 on the 7 at the 7th. Yes, that's very
7 at 7.
7 at 7, yes. Thank you again, Ruth, for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for the Bookbinder's Daughter. I'm saying thank you for the Bookbinder's Daughter. When I go downstairs and read chapter 29, we'll see whether I say thank you.
You'll have to let me know.
I'm sure I will. But thank you. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks a million.
Thank you.